Well, hello everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show, right here on voiceamerica.com, America's Voice. We've been on the air now about 24 years, and I'm very proud of this program. This is the program that shows you how to turn your problems into solutions and your obstacles into opportunities and make your dreams come true. And today is really an example of that. Truly. We're talking about unexpected friendship. We're talking about mutual self-development. We're talking about entrepreneurial wisdom and motivation for changing your life with two people who've interacted and really helped each other from different stages of life, different areas of life, and we're going to talk about that today. So first, we'll talk about the book in 17 runs, R-U-N-S, The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's Two Potentials with Olivia Chadwick and Garnet Morris. I will tell you about them in a minute. They're going to chart the course of their year-long journey of discovery and mutual transformation. Through opening up to one another during their runs when they ran together, Olivia and Garnet learned that they had similar troubled childhoods and struggles with loss, but they also shared similar values. So Olivia started coaching Garnet and came to realize that she needed coaching herself on self-esteem and self-forgiveness. And Garnet, who had lost 130 pounds, quit smoking, and rebounded from bankruptcy to build a phenomenally successful new business, needed a reminder on renewing the power of friendship. So, honoring all of the emotional, philosophical, and deeply personal topics they discussed again and again, they put all of this into a book with wonderful stories. And let me just share a little bit about both of them. Olivia Chadwick is a personal trainer. She's a young mother and her family's primary breadwinner. She's the first met insurance magnate, Garnet Morris, before dawn on a winter morning in Canada. Her task was to help prepare her new client for the grueling 100-mile relay race. She knew very little about him going into it, except that he could be unpredictable, and they were separated by a generation. At a time, Garnet was just over 50, and Olivia was approaching 30. Yet gradually, their training sessions led to profound conversations, a life-changing bond, and turned into this book, 17 Runs, The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's Two Potential. All right, without further ado, I want to welcome Garnet Morris and Olivia Chadwick. Hello, both of you.
Hello.
Hi, Patricia.
Really, really great to be with you both. So, I'm just thinking how this, I guess my first question is, how did these conversations begin? Did it take a while? Did you run for maybe 2 or 3 months and just kind of chit-chatted about things? How did it start to develop? I guess would be my question.
So
Olivia? Oh, Garnet, go ahead.
I think that I tend to just jump right in things. And so we probably started within the first run or two talking about some of the different philosophical ways to live one's life. And Olivia was a willing recipient for those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
That's my recollection.
What about you, Olivia?
I think, well, it's my job in the role of the coach to find out as much about the person that I'm working with, my client, as quickly as possible so that I can immediately, meet them where they're at. And the difference with Garnet compared to other people is that Garnet is very insightful. He spends a lot of time learning about himself, and he's not afraid to be vulnerable. So typically, when I'm having conversations when I first meet people, it can be very simple responses, but Garnet doesn't really do superficial surface responses. If you ask a question, he'll give you a very in-depth answer, which I really appreciated. I'm actually really similar in that way. So we both were able to connect very, very quickly because of that.
Yeah, yeah, really great. So I know you talked about both your childhood. We said that in the introduction. And, we're influenced by our parents with other adults, and they instill in us the beliefs, whether they're limiting or they're expanding. So since you both talked about that, How do you think that we can identify these limiting beliefs that you call bricks? How do we get to those bricks and move them away?
I think that we have bricks our whole life.
Yes.
We have things that we bring from our childhood, from our upbringing, from all of that. So I think the most important thing, at least from my perspective, is that we are always aware that there's something from our past trying to drag us back, and that we sense it and we design a response to it to try to move beyond it. And and I just don't think you ever stop doing that. Every time you progress, you find another brick.
Olivia?
Yeah, I think that's exactly accurate. I think that, we come into the world and we receive a lot of messages about who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to behave and perform and expectations we're supposed to live up to. And a lot of our work moving forward in terms of our own personal journey is unpacking which of those messages feel authentic to us and which ones do not feel in alignment with what we actually are, we're truly here to do and become. Those messages are our bricks. And
Yeah.
moving beyond them is moving closer to yourself.
Yeah. I want to ask you both a question because what I have found around that as a coach and doing this work for a while, and also in my own life, really analyzing, is that when I come to a brick and I get really upset about something or it really impacts me, I find if I can go to the person or go to the situation and talk about it and find out what's really happening, because sometimes that you took it that way, but it really wasn't that. And it was something that triggered something in you that was a block. So I'd like you to talk about that. Because sometimes I've found sometimes once I find out, oh, well, gee, it was really that and not this, I don't have to get into that self-deprecating or whatever that is that I thought it was triggering. Any comments?
Well, I always have comments. I mean, I don't quite work that way. So in my world, everything's an opportunity, and the bricks are the things that stop them. So even as a young child, I dreamt about being wealthy. I dreamt about those kind of things. So I've always been moving towards that. So what I found in my life, what bricks were poor behaviors. So things that I'd learned from my family, ways of behaving that weren't appropriate for someone who wants to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you're always learning new things. So, in today's business world, you have to master social media. You have to master a lot of new things. So those are all bricks to me because something I've tried to avoid my whole life up till now. So I think that I just look at as impediments to progress. And and they're put there continuously by the media, by people, so you just keep identifying, working through, work through.
Yeah, that's very good. I think I was using bricks in a different context, as you said. I was
Yeah.
thinking it more as blocks, our own blocks that prevent us from maybe taking something in.
Yeah.
Comments, Olivia, about that? I'm sure you've had clients that have those emotional blocks, like, gee, I can't do this, and until they can get past that, whatever that fear was or that deep place.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I heard you say was about how your beliefs about yourself can be so limiting, is kind of what I
Yes.
say. And of course, when people initially come to work with me, especially in my role in mental performance or in movement, they come with very fixed beliefs about what they've done in the past and what might
Yes.
be possible for them in the future based a lot on their current reality or their past experiences and beliefs that they have about themselves. And it's actually the most favorite part of my work is to be able to stand in a place of solidarity with that person and slowly tease apart over time, and it can take quite a long time,
Mm,
not why, what might be possible for them moving
yes.
forward if they would allow themselves to think bigger than what they've
Right.
allowed themselves in the past. It's a very exciting process,
Yeah.
but a really difficult one too.
So it's really two things. One is the brick itself, and the other one then is the emotional part of you, being able to accept things, right? And move past them. So there's a couple of things in here. So I'm going to start, Olivia, with you on this one. Then how do we take whatever that brick is or a bad habit? How do we start to transform it? Particularly, as you said, when it's kind of baked in there. I mean, obviously you have the person has the desire or they wouldn't come see you, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So you're starting with that somewhere. They may be resistant, but they've got the desire, or they just wouldn't go to a coach.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a great question. Obviously, I'm going to speak just from personal experience here because I think there's so many different types of bricks and different ways that you might approach it. But what you've just stated is that people are admitting that they're not where they want to be. That initial step of I've missed course and misdirected in some way. I need to change course. The future that I currently see for myself is not the one I desire. That initial moment of honesty, of self-honesty, is the hardest part. By the time people come to me, and there's even great clinical evidence to indicate this, is it takes more than 6 months for them to take that action. So there's
Wow.
a lot of machination that's happening of thinking that, well, maybe there I want to do something about this, but not actually taking action towards it. And by the time they see me, typically people are very motivated to take action because this has been on their mind for a long, long time,
Mm,
maybe years.
yes.
So that moment of honesty to take action, I think, is the first step. I don't know if I amply answered your question there. Sorry.
No, no, you did. And I think Garnet, I'd like to refer to you because you were a recipient of that, right? You came to her needing to change some habits. So how is that for you?
Um, so, I mean, I think that specifically when I started training with Olivia, it was around distance running. So before that, I mean, I'd already lost a lot of weight and I was exercising, but endurance running was something I hadn't tackled. So I had to get used to a whole different kettle of fish in terms of how I did things.
Mm,
And, I don't think I doubted that I could do it. I just wasn't sure that. Um, so I guess put it this way, I was pretty sure I could do it, but I didn't have any tools to do it. So you have to learn, things like stretching and to be a little bit patient and to not just try to push against the wall
mm.
with everything you could. And so then
So,
training with Olivia, whether I liked it or not, we did it her way.
so to break that, to go from bad habits to good habits, it sounds like you're saying, Garnet, you just one step at a time.
Well, the first thing you do is decide. And I
Right.
mean, I'm adamant that that's the first thing. So if you don't like this where you are, then just visualize what it looks like and then decide you're going to do it. And then go find the coaches to help you get there because we're not all blessed with infinite internal coaching abilities.
Right. Doesn't this also go back to some basic values, values and needs um, you know, and how that fits in? Olivia, your thoughts?
I think the way that I would values connects here for me is that moment of discomfort that I was talking about previously of feeling stuckness, I think is actually somebody not living in alignment with their values.
Mhm.
And they don't know why, potentially, but it's an uncomfortable experience when you believe you have an identity about yourself, things that you care about, things that you believe in, and
Mm,
you're not living in alignment with that. It's your responsibility to figure out how to get back in alignment or what is preventing you from being in alignment with what you actually know you care about or what you're here to do and the purpose on your life.
yeah. I mean, an analogy to that would be I really value family, and then you're gone all the time, right? Or you're
Exactly.
working all the time. And
Yeah.
so, of course, it's not an alignment. Talk about the difference between your values, then your basic needs, and the conditioning we have, our social conditioning. Garnet, you want to start?
So, kind of to wind this in with what you're just saying. So, one of the big values that I have is honesty. So when you look at honesty, that's both internal and external. So I don't lie to other people, but I do my best to not lie to myself either. And so if you come from that perspective, then when you face a challenge, you're actually candid with yourself that one, I believe I can overcome the challenge, but two, I'm going to need some help. And so then it's the willingness to take outside advice. So if you go through, we have our basic family values. Each one of those things are derivatives of what it takes to become successful, or success is the derivative of those values, depending on how you want to put it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you're in alignment, you can feel it.
Yeah, because you sleep better.
Yeah. Yeah. Olivia, any comments about that?
I love everything that Garnet just said, and I know that values, and specifically the value he was referring to, is so important to him. Values for me has been really important because unlearning a lot of social conditioning, I think, as a woman, is really, really important to our personal growth. I'm sure it is for a man too, but hey, I take it from a woman's perspective. And for me personally, being able to unshackle myself from a lot of the social conditioning or even family beliefs around my role in the world, whose needs are most important. Learning how to attend to my own needs was honestly a lot of decades of internal work for me personally. And being able to unearth my values outside of the needs of other people was incredibly important to my own growth.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about values. We're going to talk about goals and, how Garnet achieved his goals, and now he also helped Olivia achieve her goals. We'll also talk about generosity. We'll talk about, what happens when you're feeling uncomfortable when you're reaching your goals. So these are things we're going to talk about when we come back. I am talking to co-authors of the new book, 17 Runs, An Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potential, Garnet Morris and Olivia Chadwick. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and we are back. You are listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show right here on voiceamerica.com. And we are talking to Garnet Morris and Olivia Chadwick. They are co-authors of the new book, 17 Runs, The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potential. And as Olivia was coaching Garnet as they were running, They got to know each other and they really helped each other. And so we're talking about really the culmination of their conversations and their growth that developed into a book. And so far, we've talked about removing bricks, which are limiting beliefs. We've talked about building good habits, which is a transformation of a bad habit. And we did talk about our values too, and how everything comes from our values. And if we're not in alignment with our values and our behavior, it's not going to sit well with us. And what we want to talk about next is goals. But before we do, generosity is something that really fits into all of this. So I want to ask you about that, Garnet and Olivia. How does generosity fit into this whole picture?
To me, it's just a philosophy of life. It's how I live my life. So, when I meet someone new, it's what I can do for them, not what they can do for me. So that is the core of generosity. So then I'm eager to help all the time. I get involved in lots of projects where it all started from what I could do for them. And I think that if we approach life like that, when we meet someone and someone new, what is it that we can do for them? How can we further their life? And it really transforms our own life.
Yeah, like giving to other people. Olivia?
I learned so much about generosity through my relationship with Garnet. It was the cornerstone, really, of the deepening of our relationship. I think it's in sometimes as somebody might hear the way that Garnet, explained that's just how he operates in the world. I think we all understand that that would be a goal for any of us to want to operate like that, but the belief that we actually could seems far-fetched, I think, sometimes. However, I've been so lucky in my life to have a friend like Garnet, or to have a family member like Garnet, really, who has been able to demonstrate to me that it is possible and the myriad of ways that somebody can show up in somebody's life in the spirit of generosity um, has taught me so much. I've just been the recipient of it. And the most incredible thing that has resulted from that, that I'm so grateful for, is not what I actually received from Garnet, whether it was a kind word or feedback or something else. It's the capacity that it built within me to be more generous with other people.
Mm. Yeah,
that that gift changes your perspective on how energy flows in the world. You think if you give it away that somehow you'll lose, you'll be at a loss in some way, and yet the generative force of generosity is that you are given endless supply the more that you give. I would never have learned that without Garner's
yeah.
generosity, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you mentioned the word family. Garnett is family, and he's not immediate family or blood family, but but speak about that. Garnett, speak about support systems and people who may be considered family, even though they're not biological family.
So the mantra we learned from the advisor to our family, and yeah, I love having advisors because I wasn't gifted with an awful lot of knowledge on the first day, was that a family member is anybody that would take a bullet for you metaphorically. And so that's how I treat people who are in my family. And that's what I expect of them. And so then it builds a common value set. So it's an exercise we're going through right now. And if you can build a common value set in a family, then it's like, you know, the family walking down a beach all holding hands, and each person is worried about the person beside them and hopefully how to help them keep up. So then the family just keeps bringing everybody along, and it rises the tide for everybody. And so that's how I look at family. And so, we have our family, Olivia and our son, and, our natural children, but it's still, my heart is open. There's always room for more.
Yeah, great. Olivia, how does all this tie into goals? Your values, your generosity, family, um, the building blocks, removing the bricks, building good habits. How does this all fit in then to achieving the goal?
It sounds like goals might not be connected because a goal sounds sort of tactical and divisive in a way. We've talked about a lot of heart-centered things. but it actually is the mechanism that ties so much of what we've talked about together. Because a goal is an idea or a vision of a future reality or a future self that you desire to become. But in becoming that future self, the reason why you're not there yet is because there's so many roadblocks in the way to you getting there, like bricks, like not living in alignment with your values. And so you set a goal because you have a desire towards a future outcome. The journey that you're going to have to go on is going to be the growth that you're required to do to go on that journey. All the tools that we provide in the book are to help you get towards that goal, really. So the goal is it's mechanical, but it is the ultimate mechanism of growth.
Mm-hmm. But it's all those steps along the way, though, that are part of that goal, correct?
All the steps along the way, exactly, and the things that you've already brought up, like habits and addressing your barriers and your blocks and your beliefs.
Mm.
Exactly.
Garnet, anything to add to that?
So I'm a simplifier. So I have a goal and I have lots of them. And then I believe I take a picture of myself having achieved the goal. Then I start working backwards and working backwards to today. And so then I figure out what coaches I need to help get that goal, what resources I need, and who, and how, and then it just sort of seems to come together. And so I still set big goals all the time. I have been since I was a little kid. And I can't give us a fancy a description of this as Olivia, except that it's my series of goals that drives me. And now the goals become more, everyone is centered on helping somebody else or making a difference in somebody else's life.
Would you relate this to your losing the 130 pounds, because that's a massive amount of weight, how that process unfolded for you?
Well, I decided that I was fat. So that was the number one thing. Because up until then, I just thought I was just a little heavy. And so then I went to a doctor who told me that she'd tell me what to do, but that not for me to expect her to be my mother. And then I started finding other coaches, a psychologist, a dietitian, personal trainer, and I just started going. So I had set a goal for myself to get my weight down to 240. But at 240, I was still fat because I'm actually a really skinny person on the inside. So then I moved the goal again, and then moved the goal again, and I moved the goal again. But each time I found a different level of coaching and a different people to help.
My question to you is, how did you handle it emotionally? Like when you wanted to eat something, or you wanted to overeat, or you wanted to go off the rails, if you will. How are you able to regulate that and not go backward?
Well, I think that, I mean, I can tell you how I did it, and I think everybody's capable of doing this if they don't tell themselves a story. So I just decided I wasn't going to. When I quit smoking, I decided I wasn't going to smoke, period. And it was terrifying at times, but I just decided. And I told myself, Garnet, you decided you weren't going to do this. There's no room to go back. And it was the same with
So
changing.
once you make up the decision, that's it for you.
Well, but that's it for all of us. But then we tend to want to waver and we tell ourselves a story. So I just refused to do that.
I see. So that's the difference. But
Wow.
that's very strong. I mean, don't you think, Olivia? Because a lot of people don't do that. I mean, how many people struggle with you lose weight or you stop smoking and then you go back?
I obviously everyone. I think what Garnet is really significantly skilled at is understanding the nature of his mind. And the nature of the mind is something that's really it's a knowledge that Garnet has learned about. One of his therapists was a specialist in Buddhist principles. So that idea of understanding the nature of the mind and where thoughts come from and whether we should believe a thought or whether, and a thought being an excuse many, many times, is work that Garnet has done. So he has lots of tools in there that help him make those decisions and not fall back due to the nature of the mind, I think and that's just one of them. I'm sure there's many others that Garnet can explain that were pivotal in helping him build the inner strength.
Yeah. But that's, Garnet, that's very strong. I mean, not everybody can do that, or they do it, but they waffle back and forth.
I mean, there's lots of days I wanted a cigarette. There's lots of days I wanted a French fry, but I had decided. But I think the other thing I was not afraid to tell other people what I was doing. So then it was not just me that I'd be letting down, and I felt that all the people that I told that I was going to lose weight too. And when I announced that there's a group of 40 people in the room, and so like it's you have to be prepared to take a stand and be prepared to tell others what stand you're taking.
Right. So that they can help you be accountable.
Yeah, well, just the fact that you told them makes you accountable unless you want to embarrass yourself.
Yeah.
That's one of my things.
True. Yeah. Yeah. So fascinating. So, what happens in this discomfort zone? Now, I'm going to ask you first, Olivia, and then I want you to give an example, Garnet, and you can too, Olivia, about, when you got to that zone. Now, it sounds like, Garnet, you just said, well, I'm uncomfortable, but too bad, I committed. Is that kind of what you did?
Yep, and still do.
Yeah. All right. What would you say, Olivia, with the discomfort zone?
Many people ask why this book is called 17 Runs, and it's not really about running, even though we were running a lot. But I really believe in the metaphor of 17 runs, that idea of running being such a hard thing, but where all the growth happens. And with exercise, which it is so hard to do, it's so visceral, that experience of discomfort that you have. And yet, on the other, what's on the other side is really worthwhile. I think that it's really important that this book is in that sort of really visceral context, right? That the idea that the physical discomfort that we go on in the journey of our lives is where all the meaning making is happening. It's where all the relationships are being born. It's where all of our personal development is happening. It's such a difficult understanding to accept, or reality to accept. But that is why, that's one of the reasons, other than the fact that we literally were running, but why this book is set within that context.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as you said, it's a metaphor
It's a
for,
metaphor.
right, not just for running, but for really your brain, isn't it? In a way, the way you think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Doing hard things, um, setting big goals, believing in your ability to do something, even though you don't currently have the evidence for it, soliciting support for help to get there. Many, many tools within the metaphor of running, for sure.
Hmm. What about the mistakes that you make along the way? Um, I know in your book you talk about looking at them as necessary toward the path forward. But some people, when they make a mistake, they can't seem to get over it, or even though they keep moving forward, they go back and do the postmortem. Well, why did I do it that way? And I wish I hadn't done it that way, but it's done. Comments about that, Garnet?
So, if there was a club for people that make a lot of mistakes, I would be the president. I'll tell you that right now. So, my approach is this: mistakes are a part of learning. When I make a mistake, I move on. I look at what I could have done different, and I try to do it different the next time, so that I don't try to make the same mistake twice. But I never let the fear of making a mistake stop me from taking a big reach. So I think we just have to accept we make them. And as long as those mistakes are all within our value set, so they're honest errors, they're not from maliciousness, they're not from that, but they're from an honest attempt to try. I just think we accept that as a learning experience.
Mhm.
But I still make lots of mistakes. I don't know, I bet you I could make 3 or 4 mistakes a day if I started keeping track.
Olivia?
I don't think I'm as resilient against his mistakes as what Garnet maybe always has been. It's definitely something I've had to learn a skill set of. Um, One of the most pivotal moments in my life was when I learned about Brene Brown's work around shame. I
Hmm.
never realized how much shame actually caused me to be dishonest with myself, of not really um, allowing myself to fully explore the stories of my life due to shame, and therefore not have the learning opportunities that were available to me to understand myself. And so when I make mistakes, it's very visceral to me, just like shame. Like I'm a problem, I have problems, I'm a flawed human being. And it's really similar to that experience of shame for me. So for me, there was a lot of inner work required to do, a lot of learning how to regulate my nervous system and how to talk to myself, self-talk. It's really probably the primary reason that I went back to school to do my master's in sports psychology, because really understanding how to care for myself better in that particular area was really important to my healing journey in the past and my growth journey in the future.
Yeah, that's such a great comment, and I think so true, for so many of us. It's being able to move through that, and then eventually you see that mistake, right? If you keep looking in the positive and moving forward, you see how it's helping you move forward. Yeah, very, very important. We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the book, 17 Runs, the path to unlock life's true potential. We'll tell a couple of stories and we'll talk about our own idiosyncrasies and how that makes us who we are, you know? And truthfully, what Garnet and Olivia have gained in their own lives from working together, impacting each other, and writing the book together. All right, in our final segment. You're listening to the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and we are back. We are talking to Garnet Morris and Olivia Chadwick, co-authors of the book 17 Runs, the Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potential. So let's talk about idiosyncrasies, how we all have them, and why you feel that they can be a positive thing rather than a negative thing. Olivia or Garnet, go ahead.
Um, from my perspective, the idiosyncrasies are just a way of describing our uniqueness. And so when I was young, I was bullied. Our family moved a lot, so I never really got to be popular. So I started to take pride in my uniqueness. And along the way, I had a lot of coaching in that way. So I just think that our idiosyncrasies are what makes us different from other people, and that we should um, be proud of them, not afraid of them, and act uh, to better our fellow man with those idiosyncrasies the best that we can.
Good. Olivia?
I could answer this in so many different ways, like personally or refer ways that Garnet has taught me about this. It ties to generosity. I want to be clear that one of the most powerful ways that Garnet has been generous with me is making me believe he believes in me before I can believe in myself. And that's always been the way. So Garnet shows up in the spirit of generosity, of seeing something in you that he believes has potential for greatness. And to experience that when you personally aren't able to see it, almost means that you're not able to see your own giftedness. I mean, I think it definitely means that. And so this really ties in for generosity for me, because I think that sometimes we don't see our giftedness because we think that that thing that's unusual about us is a problem that doesn't have value in the world. So when you have somebody like Garnet who sees that uniqueness about you as the area that makes you special, it really can open up and expose you to allow those parts to come forward. And in allowing those parts to come forward, you get to experience yourself in a completely unique and different way.
Mm.
It's an act of it's a loving act that allows you to appreciate yourself so much more. That that skill that Carter has been so powerful for me in my own life. I don't necessarily know you have to call it an idiosyncrasy, but I think it's just not allowing the full expression of yourself, that part of you that you don't allow to be fully seen because you have beliefs about it that are holding you back. That's how I perceive it. Know
Can you
your
give an
giftedness and
example?
express it.
Can you give an example, either your own life or somebody you've worked with?
I think one of the most significant ones for me was in the book we talk about Garnet meeting my son and having a really strong affinity for him when he was just 3 years old. And at that time, if you read the book, you will learn, and Garnet will openly share that he was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult. And when he met my son, I don't think he had seen him more than twice before he expressed to me, I think your son has ADHD. He really felt that kindredness of the way that Keenan saw the world and the way that he expressed himself was really similar to how Garnet saw himself. It wasn't until years later that Keenan was of appropriate age where you could examine whether or not he had ADHD. And he turns out that he does. And learning that about my son has helped me parent him. I want to learn more to understand how his brain works so I can support him and learn the specialness about the way that he is and help him see it as specialness.
Mm.
So there's that other layer too, is that when you allow your own giftedness to shine, you see that other people have giftedness too that should be allowed to be expressed, and you want that deeply for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Comments, Garnet?
Um, Olivia pretty much summed it up, but I, a long time ago, quit worrying about how I was perceived by others with my idiosyncrasies and focused more on what I could do with them. And I had, took a while to learn to be, I guess, comfortable in my own shoes. And so I think that for anybody, it's another decision you make, and it's to actually recognize what it is that makes you unique and how you can best go forward in the world with that uniqueness. And I had one piece I wanted to add. It kind of ties back to a bunch of things. I had an amazing counselor. She counseled me from the Buddhist perspective, and she had a way of expressing things around everything that could go wrong in your life. And her expression was, "But it's today, Garnet. What are you doing about it today?" And that is in my mind almost to every day. Not a day goes by I don't think about it. What am I going to do about things today? How can I affect a change today? And I just think it's a powerful thought to have in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and staying in the now, right?
Yeah.
Staying in the now, right? Because you don't have tomorrow and you don't have the past. Yeah. Very good. All right. When you think about kind of what working together to write this book together, um, what did the process teach both of you?
To allow an extra 30 minutes for every session so we could get the crying out of the way.
Interesting. Interesting.
Because
Olivia?
there was tears.
I mean, when Garnet and I first decided to write this book, we had a mission that we were writing a book for my son, who's 17 years old, which one of the fun parts about people asking me about the name of the book and me referring to why it's 17 runs is there is not a single person that you don't speak to who doesn't have that moment of realizing what life is like at 17. And it's probably the hardest time in anyone's life, which was, the mission for the book to help somebody who's going through something hard in their life know that there's things that they can do to move forward. Um, I'm so sorry, I lost track of how I was answering the question there.
You were talking about helping each other move forward
Mm.
in this process of working together.
Thank you. Thank you. When you're coming to write the book with this idea of this outcome that you believe you're going to have, but really starting the book is beginning the book is the starting place of a much bigger journey that Garnet and I went on. It took us a year to write this book, and how our relationship deepened and our beliefs in each other and beliefs in the role that we have in each other's life has evolved tremendously through writing this book. Um, I believe in myself more. I believe in our relationship more. I believe in what I'm capable of because of how Garnet has helped me grow throughout this process. Um, I I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to write a book, which, I believe everyone has a book in them, but having the opportunity to write one has been incredible.
Yeah, I guess. What would you like to leave our listeners with? What would you say is your message? I'll start with you, Garnet.
I think that, in my view, if you can simplify your understanding of things, so in other words, just make the decision to make that change. Figure out what it is you need to do to be able to support that decision. Then we can all move forward at whatever pace we choose. And I believe we have an obligation to move forward and to optimize the toolkit that we were given, which in many of us just lays on the floor and nothing ever happens with it. It's needed more in our society than ever before.
What do you think, Olivia? Thank you.
For me, I think that the experience of growing my concept of family has been the most important understanding that came out of this book, and it continues to evolve even. Our our book trailer that we created begins with, you never know when you're going to meet someone who's going to change your life. And if we entered out into the world every day, believing that we're going to make a connection with someone who might become a good friend or might challenge us in a way that we really need, or might become that kindred spirit that makes us understand ourselves in the world in a more warm and loving way. I think our book is really about connection at the heart of it, and that all growth and meaning and development comes from that.
Beautifully said, both of you. Tell our listeners where they can find you, the social media, the websites, if you're doing any talks, or please share that.
I'll let you sum that up, Olivia, because I mentioned earlier, social media is a little bit new to me, and I'm still in the cold sweat most of the time when I try to go there. So.
Well, definitely, if you want to be able to reach out to us, I think that lots of people reach out through social media these days. Our Instagram is at Life Lessons on the Run. I think it would be a great place to connect with people because we're sharing videos about the evolution of the book and things that are coming from the book, experiences that are coming from the book. And Garnet and I are deeply committed to making these lessons real in people's lives. And that is going to continue to evolve over time. So getting connected with us to go on this journey, I think would be a wonderful place to start. If they're thinking about purchasing the book, or if they just want to learn more about other talks and speaking presentations that we're doing, you could head to our website at 17, the number 17runs.com.
Okay. All right. Garnet, anything to add about that? If people want to write to you or ask a question, they would do that through the website?
They can, and I just would say that I'm on a mission in life. This is the part that I really do. So if I can help in some way, but I very much believe in the Buddhist philosophy. If I'll help someone, providing they're helping someone else, and not keep coming back to the well for help over and over. And so that's the life, the rules I live by. And we're both happy to help in any way we can.
And that would be, they can do that through the website.
Yeah, you can reach me.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts, Olivia and Garnet?
I really appreciate to be on your show. I think this is really amazing. And yes, this is all kind of new and exciting. So
Yeah, a delight. Thank you, Patricia, for helping us guide us through this conversation.
Well, thank you. I think it's the power of friendship. It's the power of openness, as you said, transparency, honesty, owning things and just as you said, being vulnerable. And the book is 17 Runs, The Unbeaten Path to Unlock Life's True Potentials, and it's 17runs.com. Thank you both. It was wonderful. Thank you both for being on. Stay on the line.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, folks, that wraps up this edition of the Patricia Raskin Positive Living Show. To find me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. If you are interested in getting your positive message out and would like to do your own podcast series, I've interviewed over 5,000 guests in my career, and I'd love to help you do that. So contact me, Patricia at patriciaraskin.com. And you can also get a copy of my newsletter by writing to me as well. And I bet you'll see all the monthly guests or all the guests coming on all the time. All right, folks, remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin. Bye for now.